So, what are the advantages and disadvantages of a group incentive plan or a pay for performance plan for groups? So let's just quickly look at it. Some of the pros. It actually supports this idea of people working together, group planning, problem solving. It builds a team culture. The contribution of individual employees depend on the group cooperation. So again, we're pushing this idea of team and sometimes, well, no, we're not going to be sometimes here, right? Unlike incentive plans based solely on output, team incentives can broaden the scope of the contribution that employees are motivated to make. Team bonuses tend to reduce employee jealousies and complaints over tight or loose individual standards. Or team incentives actually encourage cross-training and the acquiring of new skills or competencies because you just want the team to be able to achieve. Yeah, definitely a TQM kind of vibe. Some of the cons, and these are real, individual team members may perceive that their efforts contribute little to team success or to the attainment of the incentive bonuses. So people feel that what they do doesn't really matter. We all know the social loafers, we all know the free riders, that, at the end of the day, there are people who may get away with not doing much, but still benefit from the team incentive, which is why being so clear on the performance standards and pushing that team head is just such a big part of this. And if the formulas are too complicated, then it's not going to work. So I've seen some crazy formulas sometimes to work out what 0.01% of what differential of this multiplied by how much years you're there, and it just gets a little complicated, right? So if we're going to do this, we need to kind of keep it simple. So finally, and again, this is just an overview, but it's a lot. If we're going to look at actually rewarding the whole organization, not the individual, not a team or a department, but the whole organization, what does this entail? So one of the main ways we do this is profit sharing. So I know you all would have heard maybe some of the banks do profit sharing. So any procedure by which an employer pays or makes available to all regular employees, in addition to any base pay, is basically a sum of money based on the profits of the organization. So some of the challenges is the agreement of how we're going to distribute or divide up profits beforehand, and what happens if we don't make profits. So these are real. So this has to be discussed before any profits are made. So if the organization makes over 10% of the profits that they were supposed to, then 5% will be distributed towards the employees, 5% will be reinvested in the company. But of that 5%, who's getting what? Very interestingly, if let's just say we have 10% of profits to play with, sometimes executive management get 8% and everybody else gets 2%. So those kind of things have to be worked out beforehand. Yep. Stock options are a great way of doing this. So employees actually have an option to purchase a number of shares during a designated period, usually at the initial purchase offer price, so it's lower. Or employee stock ownership plans, or ESOP, which is a whole kind of a different kind of category of stock where employees also have a right to purchase, usually at a good price to begin with. In some countries, employee stock ownership plans are tax exempt. We used to be, but that ain't so anymore. And sometimes some companies would allow you to use your bonus to purchase shares so that you're not actually out of pocket. Now, the reality of these things is when you actually own a piece of the company, you do watch things differently. And of course, for any stocks or shares, you get dividends every 6 months or every year. And when you see that the company is performing well and your dividend check actually increases as well, it's a real motivation to, want to perform well and to really care about your organization. So you'll find that people who do actually own piece, literally, of the company that they work in are motivated to really do well. So why do these things fail? We know on paper they look great. Obviously, people do well when they're incentivized. People like those stretch goals. People like to earn more. Productivity and performance levels are met. So there's so many millions of reasons why these things should work. Why are we looking at why should they fail? Why do they fail? And here's what we mean by these are reasons why these things can fail. So by all means, we gotta listen. So what do we first mean by fail? The reason we're doing this in the first place is to improve performance. We were not just saying, hey, let's come up with an incentive just for so. No. We are coming up with an incentive plan to help people achieve some sort of performance target. So if there's no improvement in performance, if we've not met the attained target, then these things have failed, right? So why does that sometimes happen? They may not interest people. It's not worth me working hard for $40 extra. I'm just not incentivized. It's just not satisfying to me. Management have failed or may have failed to give adequate attention to how it's designed. So in fact, we are rewarding things that actually have no input onto the overall productivity. So I'm incentivizing people to do things and it's not resulting in any improvement in my achievement of goals. Performance standards are not clear, they're not realistic. I feel that I can't achieve the performance that you're asking me to achieve for all kind of various reasons, like thing ain't working, you're not giving me the equipment, etc. I may have designed a really well plan, but I've not implemented it properly, so people don't know about it. They don't know how to calculate things. They don't know how payments are made. And this is an interesting one, morale. If the morale of the organization is high, these things tend to do well. But if the morale is low, there's a general distrust vibe or what these people come in with next vibe, then nothing is going to be openly welcomed. It's something else that you need to convince. And the last thing we're going to do is actually go back to our motivation theories. Remember, we had a whole week on these things. And again, there are a couple of I think one video this week touches on them again, as we're looking at the motivation theories as it relates to pay for performance. So not just at compensation generally, but pay for performance. So I have no intention of going through each of them again. I'm not going to explain Maslow and Hertzberg and all that again, but just to touch what's their relevance, that's the word, to the pay for performance programs. So Maslow, the one with the triangle, hierarchy of needs, etc. And what we're kind of linked here with pay for performance is that, if we're saying that people need to meet those basic needs, then the basic pay should be able to make people meet their basic needs. Your incentive pay should not mean you meeting basic needs. So we need to get that clear, right? If the program is very high risk, so you have to put a hell of a lot out or work real hard, then it may not be worth it to people because some of their lower order needs may also not be met. But this idea of success sharing plans, the employee stock ownership, the profit sharing, those may really appeal to people's higher order needs. So there's something to be said there. Hertzberg, this is the one that suggests that the factors that make us satisfied are not the factors that make us dissatisfied. This is a big one. Performance-based pay is motivating. So this is a motivational thing for employees to the extent that it's connected with those motivators, those job satisfying factors, such as recognition, achievement, attainment. But let's remember, you could have all the greatest incentive programs or performance-based programs, performance-based pay programs in place. But if the hygiene factors, the working conditions, the type of work, how they're being supervised is not positive, then half them incentive programs ain't gonna work. So again, let's just make sure we understand the difference when it comes to motivators and hygiene factors. Vroom, this is the one with the 3 levels that people will work hard if they think that that work will be noticed or appraised, and then they will work hard if the work is noted, that they will receive some sort of reward for that, but that the reward will be something that they want. So this again, knowing this, we need to be crystal clear as to what we want. People need to understand that pay performance link. They need to understand that if they do X, they will get Y. It needs to be crystal clear. It needs to be seen to be a reward. And then we also need to start to get into what are the behaviors required to achieve the greatest reward. So not just putting out that this is what you need to do or this is what you need to achieve, but how are you going to do that? Equity theory, that's the one all about measuring inputs and outputs and fairness and what we'll do. Generally, fairness should mean that if increase my performance levels, I should, get increases in pay, right? But again, this would mean that what I put out there needs to be clearly measured and monitored. What my outputs are also needs to be clearly measured and monitored, so I can see whether or not this is fair. And then let's not forget, people are going to compare. So if I working real hard and I only getting this, and somebody ain't working hard at all and they getting a lot more, then that's going to screw up the whole thing. And then finally, reinforcement theory, which is really what all of this is based on, and I'm trying to reinforce behaviors and reward them, is that the payments must follow closely. I can't have people waiting a year for money that I owe them for doing good. That's just going to kill it, right? In fact, there's nothing that's going to kill it more than when I withhold payments or if I really just take too long to pay. Okay, it's got to be, the link has got to be clear. That reinforcement has to be timely. Woo! I know it's a lot. Listen to this a few times. I've given you a lot of YouTube videos. That's not that. There's so many more YouTube videos out there. Maybe you want to Google examples of incentive plans of companies that companies have actually put in place or pay for performance plans. But we have done a lot here. So we've looked at the fact that they exist. They're a way of giving people a little bit more money once they achieve some level of performance. We just looked at the theories and how these motivational theories do actually link back to pay for performance and help us to better understand how to get it right. We looked at the advantages of doing this, which is obviously we're going to be rewarding performance. We're going to be achieving more and therefore may have a little bit more to give. But the idea is we're going to be achieving what we set out to achieve. What we need to do to get it right, the fact that we can actually reward at an individual level, at a team or group level, or an organizational level. And we looked at the advantages and disadvantages of all of those. That's when we touched on things like the ESOP and the profit sharing. And then finally, it's always good to understand why these things fail so that we can mitigate that by putting the things in place early on. So hopefully this is a good foundation for you to move forward with your assignment. Feel free to contact me if you have any queries on anything. Take care for now, everyone.